901-751-7500. Join the conversation this Wednesday on The Mary Beth Conley Show, 12 noon to 1 p.m. here on The Voice, FM 107.9 and AM 990.
The Schnitt Show with Todd Schnitt, 7 to 10 p.m. weeknights on KWAM. Now on FM 107.9 and AM 990. Here's Business Spotlight from your local voice, FM 107.9 and AM 990. And here's your host, George Bryant.
Good morning. It is Tuesday, and the sun is shining. It's a beautiful spring day right here in Memphis. And one of my favorite things that I get to do is do our Business Spotlight, where we turn our spotlight on one of our local business partners on Tuesdays. We're doing that with Triumph Bank. Tracy Strickland, let's talk growth.
Good morning, George.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited. It's going to be 77 degrees, and it's sunny and finally feeling like spring. Very thankful for that.
It is just a beautiful day and a great week lined up for us. And yes. I'm so excited with these series radio segments that you're going to be doing today. We have got a great show lined up for you. So let's get started.
We do. Well, we've got a great guest I'm real excited to introduce. He joined me a couple of years ago, our first season on the show. But this is Steve Mitchener. He is our Senior VP of Asset-Based Lending. I won't reveal how many years he's been in banking, not to reveal the age. But I can say that Steve has been a lifelong banker. This has been his entire life career.
All right.
Over
Similar
half,
to me.
Just a couple. Exactly. That means about 5 years. And no, but over half of that career has been focused on asset-based lending, and it's a real specific niche that he has carved. And the fact that we have this type of division in our smaller community bank, it's incredibly valuable. And
True.
So welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Tracy.
Number one. And I think for a lot of our listeners that say, well, I've heard about, obviously, the regular commercial lending, but asset-based lending, obviously you're lending to businesses, but
Right.
Tell us about the differences.
Well, the exciting thing about what we do in asset-based lending is it's a working capital financing, whereas your traditional banks are doing a lot of receivables, or I'm doing equipment and real estate, and our focus is on accounts receivable and inventory. So we do working capital financing, that's what it's called, asset-based lending, and we track these things, we monitor it, and we look at it from a high plane perspective and watch over this and to allow them to provide up and down financing to coordinate their working capital.
Right. Well, I know that you've mentioned sometimes the businesses that come to you, a lot of times it's harder for them to qualify for a traditional commercial loan. So there's a little bit more risk involved.
There is.
With that. Do you want to talk about some of the that you have a ton of different industries that you've worked with, but touch on a few that seem like are the ones that end up qualifying or the ones that
Sure.
Lend more towards what you do?
Well, we don't. It's very difficult for us to say that there's no industry that we won't do.
Right.
However, the way I look at it is if a company is manufacturing something, warehousing something, or selling a service to somebody, they're creating either inventory or they're creating receivables, and that's where we can provide the assistance for them. So, again, it can be anybody that's manufacturing something. If they're just providing a service, so therefore they don't have the inventory, they just have receivables, then those would be customers that are possible for us as well.
Right.
So we do take on a little bit more risk. These might be companies that might be leveraged a little bit more, maybe don't have as flexible a cash flow as other companies might have, but we provide this form of financing, again, with a little bit more risk, but we provide something they might not otherwise be able to get.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, I know that the past few clients that have come to you for this type of lending, you're seeing them come to you almost for, two different ways, right? I mean, you say that you're either enhancing an existing structure, or a lot of times traditional banks don't want to take the risk in banking them.
Yeah, we're going to see things in twofold. One is going to be with that customer that, let's say they've got an existing $500,000 line of credit, and they want to increase it, and their current bank, because they're not monitoring it like we do, is just willing to go to that level. They're not willing to take it to a higher level. So as a result, they would come to us because we're willing to take on a little bit more risk to make this happen. And the other time is other situations that we've run into just a couple times just within the past year is their current bank says, this is not the type of structure that we want to do anymore. So they're asking the customer to leave. And it's a situation where we feel that, based on our monitoring procedures, that it's something that we can do. We can take on this relationship and help them to grow their business when they're with a bank that currently doesn't want them anymore.
We're talking with Steve Mitchener. He's the Senior VP of Asset-Based Lending with Triumph Bank. And let's talk growth with Tracy Strickland this morning. We're going to take a quick break right now, and we'll be right back with some more information about what Steve does and how he helps businesses grow throughout the Mid-South with Triumph Bank. You're listening to The Voice, FM 107.9 and AM 990. Now, here's Mid-South weather from News Channel 3's Severe Weather Center. Brought to you by the Crescent Club, hosting the people and ideas that moved Memphis forward for nearly 30 years. Poplar and I-240. Call for a free tour at 901-684-1010.
Temperatures will be climbing quickly today. Good morning from the Severe Weather Center. I'm News Channel 3's Todd Demers. Under mostly sunny skies and behind southwest winds that'll be gusting on occasion. 20 degrees warmer this afternoon. We're in the mid-70s for highs. Clear, not as cold overnight, upper 50s by daybreak. Mostly sunny, mid-70s once again for your Wednesday. With north winds, it'll be slightly cooler, mid-60s for highs for Thursday and Friday. Come see ESP Insurance, your local Safeco Insurance representatives for your home, auto, and business insurance needs. Call 901-272-2244. I'm News Channel 3's Todd Demers on The Voice, FM 107.9 and AM 990. Now back to America in the Morning.
And now back to Business Spotlight on The Voice, FM 107.9 and AM 990.
Welcome back to our studios. This morning we're doing our Business Spotlight Tuesdays. We're with Triumph Bank, Let's Talk Growth, and Tracy Strickland. I want to take a quick minute to talk about Triumph Bank as being a community bank. They are, really special with that because, what that means is that, they're involved in the local community. They're a small bank. They're local people, and they're right here helping our community grow from a business standpoint. If you have a business and you're looking for somebody to be a partner with you, but also if you're a regular guy needing a good checking account,
right.
State of the art, you can stay at home and bank, or you can come in and get ice cream on Wednesdays, or whatever the fun stuff that they are always doing at Triumph Bank. And they have 4 locations in Memphis, right over here at Poplar and I-240, Germantown, Collierville, and also in Arlington. They are just an incredible bank. Triumph Bank, 901-333-8800, or a great website at triumphbank.com. So let's get back to our great, what a good conversation we're having with Steve, your special guest, Steve Mitchener, and we're talking about asset bank management, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, you talked about having a partner, and that's truly how Steve takes care of his clients. You really know you've got not only an expert who has been doing this for a long time, but he's got an all-star team. And I want you to talk about your team. You've got some folks that really add some extra support with your asset-based lending clients. I know you're proud of them. I know I really want to have you talk about each of the roles and the things that they bring to the relationship, and what an ideal, like if we've got some folks out there that says, this might be exactly what I need, to talk about the process, like how do they first reach out to you and the things that you need, and then also how your team steps in to work and help that relationship.
Okay. Why don't I start out, since you've mentioned that, I'll give you my contact information
Good.
first of all, so that people will have that. My phone number at the office is area code 901-333-8856. Again, my name is Steve Mitchener, and you can reach me by email at smitchener, MITCHENER, at triumphbank.com. And as we talked about earlier, when we were discussing here, as far as how we put our deals together, and how we structure things, we're going to be a little bit more high monitored than other relationships are going to be. Right. Whereas a lot of relationships, whether it's real estate or equipment, are just transaction driven. What we do are more relationship driven with respect to how we track everything and how we look at everything. And to Tracy's questions about the team, and this is partly how we do that, in addition to working with me, we have an operations manager named Angela McFall, and we've got another staff member as well named Jared that helps her. And a customer is constantly reporting things to us on a weekly basis so that we can see what's happening to these working capital assets.
What type of things do they report to you on a weekly basis?
We're going to get a listing of new sales because that builds up into accounts receivable. And, of course, if those receivables have been collected, we'll get a report of what receivables have been collected. So we can track those on a weekly basis. And then also, if there are any new inventory purchases that have been made, then those get added to the borrowing base from an inventory standpoint, if in fact the customer has inventory. And then the other team member is John Clayton, and what John does is on a quarterly basis we have what we call field exams. And on these field exams, John goes out and just does testing. He looks to make sure that this information that we're receiving on a weekly basis are in fact valid receivables, and then he'll look at the inventory and do the testing on the inventory, both an inventory review for the actual verifying that the inventory is there on a spot check basis, as well as the costing of the inventory, so that when we look at the financial statements of the company, we verify that in fact that those are valid. So what John does is on a quarterly basis goes out, spends 2 or 3 days with the company to look at this. And again, this is part of the relationship we do. So it's not one where we just put a transaction in place. We've got a team that's working with the company pretty much all the time to verify these working capital assets. And as we talked about, we have to monitor these things because these are the type of assets that can be here one day and gone tomorrow. Not any fault of anybody, but that's how we monitor and evaluate.
Well, talking about the partnership agreement, like I can't imagine, a better solution, to be able to have a banker that it's probably an accountability tool for them as well, to know that they're going to be reporting to you every week. But also, I'm sure over the years you've given countless pieces of advice on, once you receive that, how they can make improvements and.
George and I were talking about that before we came on air, which is very true. A lot of companies, they've not had to do this type of monitoring in the past, and they come on board with us, and initially it seems like a lot of work. But what they have found is by doing it, it creates a discipline, as well as you said, Tracy, an accountability that they really like, and it helps them see their business and manage their business in a new light, and helps them to be more productive and more efficient in their operations.
That's right. Well, I know that you've got some general lending parameters, you like to call them.
Sure.
You want to talk about some of those?
I'll give you a few of those. And again, these are just guidelines.
Sure.
And there can be a wide range on everything.
Right.
Generally, on accounts receivable, we'll do an advance rate based upon those of 85%. That can go up or down depending on the quality of the receivables, and we look at that, and that's part of what, as I mentioned earlier, John Clayton does, our field examiner. On the inventory side, that's where you're going to have a broader range. As I've always said, we can go as low as 25% and maybe as high as 65 or 70% on inventory, depending upon the marketability of that inventory.
Right.
If we've got something that is easily identified as to what the value is of that inventory, then we're going to go a little bit higher. If it's very difficult to determine what that value is, or the marketability is significantly less, as maybe it's more of a unique product, then the advance rate is going to be significantly lower.
Sure.
So again, that's deal specific, it's inventory specific as we look at that. So it's very difficult to say everyone falls into the same category because they don't.
Well, it's not like the peg that's fitting into the hole. It's a custom tailored solution that you bring to them, and again, that's you spending time with that business owner to get to know them, to visit them on site, to figure out, okay, really what are their goals and their specific needs, and then you create this solution for them.
Right, it's
like
tailor-made
yeah.
to each company.
Yeah.
And we do look at that. Our advance rates are tailored to that particular company, that particular industry. And receivables, let's face it, all companies are using different customers and have
Right.
different relationships. So
That's
we
right.
have to look at each one of those and evaluate if, in fact, should this advance rate be the same as it is, should it be lower, and things like that.
Right.
And then, as we talked about, it's how the company manages those collections of receivables that's a factor, too, on the invoice. The greater track record they have of collecting their receivables, the higher the advance rate.
Wow.
So these are all factors that come into play, and that's what we look at in any relationship that we establish.
We're talking with Steve Mitchener. He is the Senior VP of Asset-Based Lending at Triumph Bank. Steve, what do you think are some of the big mistakes? Is there a takeaway or something over the years that you could kind of give our listeners a couple of tips? What are some of those big mistakes that you see businesses doing?
Well, how much time do I have, George? What I find is a lot of times businesses are undercapitalized, and everyone's probably going to hear that is being undercapitalized. To do what they want to do, to grow or to develop the relationships they want, it's very difficult because they just don't have the capital to do it. So, I mean, that's one of the things that we see. And then the other side is they try and grow too fast and don't have a plan. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a plan, it's very difficult to execute it, and then you're going to find out that you're back in the position where we just said, now you're undercapitalized, or you've lost some money in trying to grow too fast. And that, I would say, those are probably the two things in my world that I see more than anything else.
And I know that a lot of times in a service-based business, just like ours, one of my big problems is collections.
Sure.
So you put out the service, and you've got the overhead and the cost of doing that, but then collecting the money becomes an issue.
I've had customers telling me that they don't count something as a sale until they collect it.
Yeah. We're talking with Steve Mitchener, Senior VP for Asset-Based Lending over at Triumph Bank, a great local community bank. Tracy Strickland is our host. Let's talk growth. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about Steve and helping businesses grow throughout the Mid-South. You're listening to The Voice, FM 107.9 and AM 990.
Daily News. Dixon Gallery and Gardens will break ground on a new education building this spring. Plans call for an indoor and outdoor classrooms, a permanent interactive gallery, storage rooms, and office space. The education building will be named for Liz and Tommy Farnsworth, who donated $2.5 million for its construction. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital has launched a cloud-based data sharing and research collaboration platform called St. Jude Cloud, an online portal with benefits that include giving researchers quick access to the largest public repository of pediatric cancer genomics data in the world. Raymond James & Associates has sued the landlord of the downtown skyscraper bearing its name over problems with the building's elevators. The wealth management firm alleges 30 people have been trapped in the elevators in the past year and that there have been 40 other serious malfunctions. Raymond James wants the landlord, 50 North Front Street, Tennessee LLC, to pay for the company to relocate. Attorneys for the landlord say the elevators are safe and Raymond James is attempting to get out of the 10-year lease. For these stories and more, you can find the Memphis Daily News everywhere around Memphis or online at memphisdailynews.com.
And now back to Business Spotlight on The Voice, FM 107.9 and AM 990.
Welcome back to our studios. If you're just tuning in, we're having a fabulous segment with Triumph Bank, Let's Talk Growth. Tracy Strickland and her special guest, Steve Mitchener. He is the Senior VP of Asset-Based Lending for Triumph Bank, helping businesses grow throughout the Mid-South. I want to leave you his number, too, before we get too far into it. 901-333-8856. That's his direct number. That's 333-8856. Steve and Tracy, welcome back to our studios.
Thank you.
It's so great, and having such a pro like Steve on our team, we're pretty darn thankful for that. And he's been on our team for, I guess, 4 years. Mm-hmm. Now you joined Triumph right after I did, and what a big coup it was to get you and your team to come over and add so much. But along the way, you've had a lot of stories of some great triumphs that you've been able to help your customers have. And I know you have a few that you'd like to share, if you wouldn't mind.
I do. It's exciting with what I do because it's so unique, and you don't see asset-based lending divisions within smaller banks.
That's right.
So we're excited at Triumph Bank to be able to offer this type of commercial lending. And as we said, it's taking on a little bit more risk, and it's a little bit pricier than your traditional loans and traditional commercial deals that we might see. So one of the situations that I ran into that falls into this category was this was 3 years ago. Shortly after I'd gotten here, was a $500,000 line of credit with another bank in town, and they needed to increase their line because they had some great opportunities that were coming up, but they needed more. They needed another $200,000. And normally, our deals, we start at $1 million. We can go down to $500,000, but because of some of the fixed costs that we have in our deals, it makes it a little bit difficult to do. But in this case, I looked at it and told the company that, yes, we can provide the additional $200,000, but unfortunately, and I'm always going to be straight up and honest with people, it's going to cost you about $20,000 more for us to provide that than what you're paying currently. And without hesitating at all, he looked at me and he said, if I have $200,000 more in availability to borrow, I'm going to do $1 million more in sales. At a 25% gross margin, that's $250,000. I'll pay you the additional $20,000 all day long. That's a direct quote. So I didn't hesitate then in that point to move forward with him, and we've enjoyed a great 3-year relationship with him, and we've actually increased the line since then. So we're all pleased with that.
Well,
one.
The client appreciates the transparency that you always provide, and like you said, always being honest with that customer to lay everything out there. But then sometimes it is that situation where their current bank is not going to extend that line because it's not, what they feel comfortable about, but it's where you can step in and make a big difference for that.
Exactly. Another situation that this is a little bit different, and we've run into these a couple times just in the past year as well, has been where an existing bank determines that it's no longer a relationship that they want to have. And we try and stay in contact with various CPAs around the area and attorneys and things like that, or other referral sources that might come in contact with these people, so that if they run into a situation like that, they'll call us. So we've been successful in taking on a relationship that another bank didn't want. And again, it's going to cost them a little bit more money. They're going to be a little bit more monitoring, but the option was they didn't have a bank that was willing to support them. So not saying that that's going to be the case, that we're going to be able to do something for everybody that comes in.
Of course.
But we will take on deals that are going to be a little bit riskier, and some things that other banks don't want.
Right.
So those are things that we have tried to do to help our community as well as provide a service within our bank.
That's right. That's right. Well, and you don't just bank companies right in the Memphis area, right? I mean, so you have a good footprint for loans.
Our territory, I say, is southeastern United States. We've got customers down in Louisiana and Mississippi, obviously here in Memphis. I've got some opportunities I'm looking at over in North Carolina, so we expand well beyond our geographical territory right here.
Send John on his field exams.
And John loves doing his field exams in different places. He's trying to get that one in Hawaii, but we haven't been able to pull that one off yet.
Well, that's great. Well, share your contact information one more time if you don't mind.
Sure. Again, my phone number, 901-333-8856, and my email is S as in Steve, Mitchener, MITCHENER @triumphbank.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Steve, so much for being here. I know we always talk about how we work in the community and serve in the community, and Steve is always one of our common volunteers whenever we're serving lunch at Advanced Memphis or needing to paint walls at a warehouse. He's one of the first guys that signs up. So he doesn't just take care of his clients well, but he also serves our community partners well, and I'm so appreciative of that as well.
Steve, glad to have you here today.
Thank you. It's good to be here, George.
It's
thank you.
Always a pleasure, and thank you again for helping all the businesses that you do. And Tracy, always great having you here. Tracy Strickland with Triumph Bank. And Tracy, real quick, you guys have anything else, new programs that you wanted to throw out there real quick? Or?
Well, we've got our annual shareholder event that's coming up next Thursday to give our shareholders a glimpse of our successes and growth for from the past year and things that we're heading down the road. Of course, like I mentioned last week, we're so excited about our team in Nashville.
Yes, that's right.
They are amazing, and I'm hoping I can get one of them to drive down on a Tuesday morning to join us. But we've got some incredible growth. If you have any questions about asset-based lending or just general banking needs, we would welcome that opportunity to talk with you.
Thank you, Tracy. We'll see you back next Tuesday at 7:30.
Yes.
You're listening to Let's Talk Growth, Triumph Bank on FM 107.9 and AM 990.
Are you looking for a bank where your money can grow? Triumph Bank has great new rates on certificates of deposit. Triumph's competitive rates are for 6, 12, 18, and 20